Game Nexus Mame review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Ehrgeiz, released in 1998 on the Namco System 12 hardware. And of course there is the title screen. Now this game was a joint venture between Namco and Squaresoft. Of course it was developed by Dream Factory. As you can tell, there's many different kinds of characters here. This happens to be the arcade version. And you may have noticed that Cloud, Tifa, and some sort of weird Red 13 looking character were actually in this. And that's because I actually enabled the cheat in the Mame emulator, which actually unlocked them. If you were playing this on an authentic arcade machine, you would only be able to play Cloud, Tifa, and Django, who's the ending boss, if they were naturally unlocked by time. Now, a lot of people might find this a bit weird, but it's something called time unlocked characters, which is fairly common in arcade games. Now, after 30 days after this game being installed in the arcade, you would get Cloud. 60 days after this being installed, like its first power on, you'd get Tifa, and then 90 days after the game was installed, you would get Django. Which, when you think about it in the home market, that's kind of weird, because usually you only have to beat the game a set number of times and then you get your characters. But yeah, it was time unlocked, so the more that it's on, the more the arcade operator has more content. And the character that I choose was the yo-yo throwing cop Yoko here. Her original costume was more of a police outfit, but if you hold up while you hit the selection button, you'll get her schoolgirl outfit, which is the second outfit. If I had played this game without choosing that and I had the cop outfit, when I faced her in the mirror match later in this, it would have had this outfit. Now, this game is a fairly basic game. In the arcade there were 4 basic buttons. There was your low attack, your high attack, your special attack, and your block. Now, combining your low and high attacks in certain combinations with the directions will give you other moves other than just your regular moves. And every character has their special moves. You'll notice, I don't know if I did it at all in this footage yet, but Yoko throws her yo-yo, God Hand here, shoots, and he also puts those little bombs on the ground. Now, Yoko has a lot of kung fu moves, which in one of my later videos you'll see that Tifa is actually based off of Yoko in some ways. Some of the moves that she does are very similar to the way Tifa does it. And that's one thing I definitely have to mention about the Final Fantasy VII characters. I can honestly say none of them are 100% original. A lot of their move styles, you'll notice how God Hand here shoots. In the PlayStation version, you get more characters than just Cloud and Tifa. You also get characters like Vincent, Yuffie, and Zack. Well, of course, Vincent is based off of God Hand because they both shoot, and the way that the projectiles work is fairly similar. But I like how these stages have these multiple platforms, which back in 1998, this was kind of a new kind of concept. You really didn't see this much in the arcade. And if you notice these boxes that are in all the levels, notice he just threw it there and it hit me. There are items in the boxes, either power-ups or these swords, which give you a higher score and slow your enemy down. That's really a cool thing, very reminiscent of later games like Power Stone, which is what this game is often compared to. And of course, with the PlayStation version, they added CG endings and everything as well, and in CG intro, which you will see as well. And this game definitely has some great music. They even released a 61-track soundtrack in Japan. Now, all the character designs were done by Final Fantasy VII creator, character designer, Tetsuya Nomura, of course, including the non-Final Fantasy characters like Yoko and Shoin here. And at this stage, I don't know if either me or Shoin do it, but up on the top there where you saw him flying up, you can actually jump up there and shoot projectiles from there, which is actually pretty cool. It gives you kind of a strategic advantage that you wouldn't normally have. And of course, this game does harken after Dream Factory's previous titles, which were Tobal and Tobal #1, known as in the States, and Tobal 2, which was only released in Japan. And what's kind of weird is when you play as Yoko, this stage normally would be Yoko's stage, but when you play as Yoko, it puts Suzuki here for some unknown reason. Normally he would be in the last stage before the boss, but they throw him in the train stage when you're playing as Yoko, which honestly doesn't make any sense to me. And then next here we have this crazy guy here, hey, Nassim. I don't know why, for some reason I thought his name started with a H. I guess it's some of these weird arcade letters. But one thing I'm making note of here is the character Dasher Inoba, the character in the first level. He was actually based off of a Japanese wrestler called Antonio Inoki. I guess they just wanted to make him sound different, so they changed his name. And of course, as I had mentioned earlier, this is based off of the Namco System 12 arcade hardware, which was their upgraded PlayStation-based hardware, which ran other games such as Soul Calibur, Tekken Tag Tournament, and Tekken 3. The reason I say it's their upgraded hardware is their original hardware was the System 11, which was a lot closer to a PlayStation spec. And actually, I thought I had cut all my losses out of this video footage, but I guess I had left one of them in, so you got to see me lose against Nassim there. I tried to do that just to not to make myself look good or anything. You can tell by the time kind of skipping itself that I lost quite a few times, but just to make this video shorter, because if there's a certain character in a fighting game that I have a really hard time with, I don't want you to really have to see me lose against this character like 20 times. And the only thing I definitely have to say about this game is there are a decent amount of moves, but I honestly find them a bit limited, if you ask me. And sometimes the characters in the game can do a bit of what I tend to call them is auto combos, where they just kind of pull this crazy combo off, and it just happens so quickly that you have no chance to really defend against it. It's something that I remember in the arcade game Killer Instinct, where doing these combos, unless you really knew what you were doing, wasn't all that easy, but the AI could pull them off really quickly. In fact, it would even say auto triple combo. And here's another character, Han. He has this rocket launcher in his leg, and he does all kinds of crazy kicks and everything, which is really cool. And if you're wondering the name of this game, most commonly referred to as Ehrgeiz, but some people did call it Ehrgeiz, because that's what it kind of looks like. But it translates from German to the word ambition, which does kind of seem weird that a Japanese game developer would make a game and name it a German name. And I guess it goes without saying, for the port for this game would be to the Sony PlayStation, just like a lot of games off of the System 11 and System 12 hardware. In Japan, you saw the release of this game December 17th of 1998. In North America, we got the game May 4th of 1999. And in PAL regions, you didn't see the game until February 8th of 2000. Of course, there was also the re-release in Japan in the year 2000 on September 28th, which was part of what they called this fancy. Let me see, what did they call the the Square Millennium Collection, which included a digital clock and character diorama. Now on to the fight that I had mentioned earlier, that normally this would have been Yoko. Normally this would have been Sasuke, but for some reason, Sasuke and Yoko got completely switched. So now you'll see her in that cop outfit that I mentioned earlier. And me doing my best trying to beat a character with the exact same moves as me. As I probably mentioned it in like numerous of these Mame reviews over the years, I'm never really much of a fan of a mirror match, because most often in like the AI, they know the moves a lot better than I do, so they can kind of be really cheap with them a lot easier than I could. Well, unless you're dealing with someone like Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, where you can just keep freezing your enemy. But yeah, I always find that the AI does that like a lot quicker. And for a game of this generation, I definitely have to say the graphics are really nice looking here. The PlayStation version took a little bit of a graphical hit, mainly to the resolution, because of course it has to go on a television screen and it's not as clear as most arcade monitors, but in general, it's a very nice looking game for 1998. As I had mentioned, it's a serviceable fighter, but I do find sometimes the moves are lacking unless you really, really get them down, because you need to, you basically need to press the directional buttons and everything while you do certain moves, actually do certain moves. Now, had I actually cleared all 8 stages within 6 more minutes and 40 seconds, she would have went into that one that looks like Ketchi from Final Fantasy VII, or I wouldn't doubt there's probably going to be some people saying, oh, it's not Ketchi, it's Kate Sith, and honestly, I really don't care how other people pronounce stuff. You always get the people who are going to go, but that's the right way, you shouldn't do it wrong. I just honestly say stuff the way that I have. And now this was something that really annoyed me. This is her crazy yo-yo move where if you hold the special attack button, which is button 3 for a while, she'll charge it up and then she'll just start throwing it around. But the final boss here, Django, who I'd mentioned earlier, kind of looks like Red 13, was actually too short for that attack to hit. So it's just really an annoyance if you're trying to beat him. And one thing made to mention here is, if you face him as Cloud, all you have to do is the low attack, continuously spam the low attack, because he'll go into kind of a spin where he keeps doing spin kicks to the boss's head, and he won't be able to hit you, which is kind of weird. It might be a bug, or it might just be like kind of an Easter egg type thing. Then the whole place explodes. But yeah, that's the arcade version of Ehrgeiz. You got your nice selection of characters, and the guest characters of Cloud and Tifa, plus Django, as all 3 of them unlockables when you let the game running long enough. But in general, it's a great game, and one thing I want to mention before the end here is, had I broken both these boxes and thrown both swords into the quote-unquote editing boss here before the credits had run out, I would have gotten the ending where she's holding the Ehrgeiz sword, and it would have like congratulated me on winning the tournament. But that's really all you really get in the true ending. Well, that's Ehrgeiz, a very good fighting game, and I will see you in my next video on this game, where I take a look at the Sony PlayStation port of this, and in fact it'll be a few videos. Well, later.